Whoa, what's going on, Beachtown goers? It's me, Bob. I am one half of Jesse Egan, and Bob, I am the Bob half of the Beachtown Comedy Podcast. This is a special bonus that we promise you. As mentioned in episode 7, I said I was going to do a 1988 bonus edition for all you crazy cats, all you wild savages, all you filthy barbarians that are off the hook, off the wall, off the chain, under the table, under the weather, under the radar. We're doing a 1988 edition while Jesse was away on vacation, you see. I started watching some movies and coincidentally found out they were all from the same year. And I figured the longer I wait to do them on the episode, I'm just going to forget them. So there's a special bonus edition of At the Theater.
Popcorn and previews, movies and reviews at the theater. At the theater.
And that was the At the Theater song. That was a lot of fun. The first of the three 1988 films is almost the exact same film as The Goonies. I am talking about Stand By Me, featuring Corey Feldman and Corey Haim and these other two kids. And this is what happens in Stand By Me. Everything's going to get spoiled, okay? I'm spoiling a whole goddamn thing, okay? This is what happens in Stand By Me. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay. So there's 4 kids, and they all got terrible parents. But before we learn about the kids and the terrible parents, Richard Dreyfuss is in a truck, and he's looking at a field. And then he flashes back to the summer of 1959, and the kids got shitty parents, and Corey Haim smoked cigarettes. And then there's the nerdy kid. And then, of course, they have the short, overweight kid, just like they have the Truffle Shuffle kid in the Goonies, and Corey Feldman, who is literally in the Goonies. And there's a third kid, too, isn't there? I forget. There's the nerdy kid who's like the narrator. He's like who Richard Dreyfuss. He grows up to be Richard Dreyfuss later on. Okay, you understand. And then he tells a mayor that the shark is dangerous in the sequel to Stand By Me, I think. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, his kid's got terrible parents. Corey Haim is a mean dad, and the narrator, the young Richard Dreyfuss kid, apparently he had an older brother who was a football star and perfect, but actually also really nice too, because not every jock has to be an asshole. But that kid died in like a car accident or something, so everyone's sad. And the dad is mad at the young Dreyfuss that he can't be like his brother. I think Gordon is the kid's name. Gord? Let's go with Gord. We'll call him Gord. That's also Tom Green's character in Freddy Got Fingered. I hope I'm not conflating the two, but be that as it may. So the 4 kids, they find out that the fat kid is under a porch, and he hears these local thugs talking about how they saw a dead body out in the woods somewhere. It's like 20 miles away. And then the fat kid tells his friends in a treehouse. They're all like 12 or 13, but they have this elaborate, huge, perfect treehouse. But anyway, I mean, kids knew how to do more shit back then. So what the hell do I know? Maybe they did build it themselves after all. But anyway, they decide they're going to go on this long mission as friends to see the dead body. And they go off and they don't know and realizes how macabre or whatever, how dark or sad this is. Until eventually Gord kind of does that as time goes on. Young Richard Dreyfuss kind of feels bad. But the kids, they start fighting with each other, but they're always friends. And they almost get their testicles bitten off by a dog in a junkyard, because that was the rumor that that's what the dog was specifically trained to do, chomp balls or something like that. But they scale the fence and no one's get their balls cut off. But then they go into like they take a shortcut through a pond, and there's leeches, and then there's a leech on a kid's balls, and then there's just more balls. This whole thing is about balls. It should have been called Stand By Balls. And so he pulls a leech off his balls, but before that, they decide to have the most exciting and dramatic and tense moment in the film. 20 minutes in, they almost get run over by a train. Hang on. Oh, that's so much better. They almost get hit by a train because they're on like a train, and it's like a bridge, so there's nowhere to jump off of, and the kids almost die, and they don't, but they really come close to dying. So that was kind of scary. But then there's an hour of them walking around and balls, and eventually they find the dead kid. But as they find the dead kid, the bullies show up, all the thugs, and they want to take credit for being in the newspaper and being like, "Hey, dead kid, we found him." Like, I don't know why that was a whole big thing. But the kids are really far away, and these thugs, they just drove. They probably got there in 20 minutes. But these kids, they had to hike for like a day and a half. It was completely insane. They're very filthy, and they have leeches on their balls. You understand? So eventually, as the kids are bullying, the thugs are bullying the younger kids. So I guess it's like the 18-year-olds are kind of bullying the 12, 13-year-olds. Gord, young Richard Dreyfuss, pulls a loaded gun out of Corey Haim's bag. and fires it in the air because that's how the kids were. That's what Corey Haim did beforehand, and that's how he threatened one of the bullies. But it was the whole thing early on, and the thugs run away, and the kids know they're going to get their ass kicked someday. But then the kids eventually they just anonymously report the body to the police, which was the right thing to do anyway, because apparently that kid had died from getting hit by a train. You understand? It all ties together, man. And along the way, the real heart and meat of the story is that the kids have different emotional breakdowns and confess to each other different bad feelings they have about bad stuff their parents do. And one, Corey Feldman's dad was kind of abusive and burned his ear on a stove. This is off screen; you don't see that. This is before he's got a burnt up ear. You know what I mean? And I guess his dad was a World War II veteran, and that made it okay, sort of, but not really. So then Corey Feldman was coming to realization that his dad was not that great, and an alcoholic or something. And Corey Haim had a similar. He thought he was going to be a loser, and then you realize that the Chris Chambers was Corey Haim's name, and he grew up to be a lawyer despite being like poor and told he was never going to do anything. But he was trying to break up a bar fight and got stabbed to death, and that's what brought Richard Dreyfuss to drive to a truck to look at the field, and that is Stand By Me, arguably the greatest film ever made. Hold on, let me take a sip of water and let you digest all that. Okie dokie. So what happens next? Heathers. Now, I'd heard about this movie. I'd never seen it before in my life. Stand By Me is one of those movies where I think I see it once as a kid, and then I'm like, oh, let me read it, see if this was any good. Heathers I've never seen before at all. And I heard that this was one of the wackier, crazier, darker 80s movies. And man, everyone was right. It stars the perfect Winona Ryder and Corey Christian Slater talking like Jack Nicholson. So, okay, there's a bunch of girls named Heather. This is Heathers. Okay, and there's four of them, but only three are named Heather. Winona Ryder's not named Heather because she's special. Her name was, I don't know what the hell her name was in the movie, quite honestly. But whatever, she was not Heather. She's Winona in the movie. So one of the Heathers is Shannon Doherty, but she's not 90210 Shannon Doherty yet, so she's not a big star. So there's the main Heather who's like pretty, and she's just they're all mean and popular for no particular reason, except Winona Ryder. She's a bit nicer, of course. So anyway, the Heathers are mean and they're bullying people, and they're making fun of like the overweight girl and giving her the overweight girl fake notes from the head jock that says sexy things, and then the girl figures out the trick and gets sad, and Winona feels bad about that. She knows that wasn't the right thing to do, but apparently she's also really good at forging penmanship. That's like her weird skill. That's her talent, and no one ever questions anything she writes throughout the course of the film. And Christian Slater is dark and brooding, and he's new in school, and apparently his dad's a big construction guy. And Christian Slater, he's just hanging out by himself, and Winona Ryder takes some interest in him, and the jocks get jealous. So then Christian Slater threatens them with a loaded gun. The whole thing it's all the same movie, man. So I guess he gets expelled. But anyway, Winona Ryder gets taken to a college party, even though they're in high school, by the main Heather. And then the Winona Ryder refuses to have sex with one of the guys who was a bit too aggressive. While the main Heather, she filleted a man. She filleted him with her mouth and gave him oral pleasures. And but she thought it was cool, and it didn't matter because they were a college party. Even though she secretly hated herself, you could tell. But Winona Ryder got too drunk and she vomited on the floor because of the alcohol and everything else. And then the main Heather was mean to Winona for throwing up and embarrassing her at the party and said, "I'm going to tell everybody." So Winona Ryder, who later on accidentally runs into Christian Slater talking like Jack Nicholson, and then they make love. They just have sexual activity, I guess, and they like each other right away. And then Winona Ryder jokingly says, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if we could just make her puke all over the place and teach her a lesson?" And Christian Slater says, "Yeah," but then Christian Slater also says, "Okay, but how about we use this like Drano or some kind of chemical cleanser of some sort?" And Winona Ryder says, "No, we're not really going to use that. That'll actually kill her. We're just going to make her throw up. We'll just use these weird condiments and whatever's in the fridge or whatever the hell." And Christian Slater says, "Okay," but then Slater doesn't tell her that he switches the thing, and he gives Winona the real poison instead of just to make you puke gross stuff. So Winona unknowingly gives this to the girl. They wake her up in the morning, and she drinks it, and it kills her. It kills her dead. So Slater, Christian, convinces Winona Ryder. See, yeah, you understand how manipulative he is. He convinces her to write a fake suicide note. So now the whole high school thinks the main popular mean Heather kills herself, right? And then they're all like not sort of caring. You know how teenagers don't care what the event is; they just want the day off from high school. You know, and they really hated her anyway because she made their lives miserable. So everyone's kind of 50-50, and some people are kind of hamming up the tears for attention. Other people are just glad she's dead, and then like no one understands what the hell is going on. But Winona Ryder starts to feel bad, right? So the other Heather, who's not dead and isn't Sharon Doherty, says, "Hey, Winona, let's date these two jocks." And she's like, "I don't want. I'm already seeing Christian Slater talking like Jack Nicholson. I don't want. But hey, I need a favor." So she says, "Okay, okay." So the jocks get too drunk and they tip over a cow, which is really mean because I think it pretty much kills the cow. And then of course, he wants to have sex with Winona. Winona Leo gets away from him, runs into Christian Slater, and she's like, "No, I was just doing a favor. I wasn't really dating them." And Slater's like, he's kind of pissed, but then he kind of like got over. He's like, "Oh, okay, my bad." But then the jocks tell everyone that Winona filleted both of them at the same time and gave her a bad reputation. Everyone just willingly believed this. You understand? So so she says to Christian Slater, like, "Oh, geez, we should stage it so that they get caught looking like the two of them were having intercourse with one another." You understand? And Slater convinces her. He says, "Hey, I have these fake bullets that'll knock them out, but leave a little blood, but not actually kill him." And Winona believes this because it's the stupidest thing like anyone's ever heard. So of course it's a trick, and they both accidentally kill the jocks, and they leave a fake suicide note with more fake penmanship saying that the two of them were homosexual lovers, which and this was 88, so I guess that was a joke. It was comical because gay meant bad, you understand, LOL. So then the point, a lot of the part that a lot of people quote is the dad hanging over one of the coffins of his son, and these parents are grieving over their dead teens who they think committed teen suicide or just suicide as a teen, whatever you may call it. And he just goes, "I love my gay dead son," and like I guess the audience was supposed to laugh or something. I don't understand. But now Winona Ryder is very upset because she's been tricked into 3 murders. I guess 2 of them she really committed herself. Slater shoots one of the other guys himself. But anyway, Slater's like, "You can't break up with me. Now we're in this together, yada, yada, yada." And Slater starts teaming up with Shannon Doherty, who's starting to get her power now. And she knows she's the main Heather and she's the most popular. So I think they try to kill her, but don't. And then Slater wants to break up with Winona, and Winona tricks Slater into thinking she kills herself, but she really doesn't. She just pretends to be hanging from a thing. And Slater's like, "Oh, damn," and he gives away his plan because I came here to kill you anyway, you know. And he's really an evil guy. But Slater knows he has his plan. He's going with a bomb to blow up the school during the school pep rally. And Winona Ryder has to stop him and doesn't just go to the police, I guess, because it would incriminate her in the murders, you understand. But they have a big back and forth, and of course he's bigger and he beats her around, but she has a gun, but he knocks it out of her hand or something. And I really didn't understand the ending, if this is what was supposed to happen or if she dreamed it, but somehow she stops the bomb and there's a lot of smoke and she's got smoke all over her face and she's banged up and bleeding and stuff. What the hell did happen at the end of this movie? I really forget, but Winona Ryder walks away, and I think she sees Slater on the stairs in her fantasy, but he really just blew himself up, and the kids pretty much got out of there somehow. Is what I think happened. But anyway, that everyone dies except Winona, and that was Heather's. It didn't make a lot of sense. The movie. Let me get some water. We'll do one more. Okie dokie. 1988. The trio is complete almost. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I love these wacky 80s characters who existed in different types of media, but they were always the same character, like Mr. T, Elvira, Spuds McKenzie. I guess he was in a lot of commercials with nothing really else. Gee, I really don't. I guess that was really it. There had to be others. God, there had Max Headroom. Was he ever played by a real guy? This isn't important right now. Okay, so this is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Elvira, yeah, she introduces horror movies, and I think that's what she did as Elvira on regular TV. Anyway, and she has long dark hair and ample bosoms. Her breasts are large. You need to know that for the film. They make sure you know this. This movie is built around her ample bosoms. Okay, and she's shaking them left and right, and they're always hanging out. And she just finds out she gets groped by the new station manager, who's Texan with a Texas hat, and he says, "Come to daddy" or something. He just gives her a honk, which is the most like blatant sexual harassment or assault that you could possibly imagine. So she pushes that motherfucker down or throws him to the ground or something, and interrupts the local news. And she tells her manager, "Hey, what about that show in Vegas?" And he says, "Yeah, but you need $50,000." She's like, "Where the hell am I getting $50,000? My boobs are large." And then she gets an envelope, and it says, you have a great aunt you never met who's dead, and there's an inheritance of like 70 or whatever $1,000. It's some more money. So she goes to this town in Massachusetts that's really conservative, and she drives through the country before she gets there, and everyone's looking at her ample bosoms, and she plays loud rock and roll music, and she's kind of strange looking to them. And she gets to the town, and the women hate her. There's a tall blonde lady who also has somewhat ample bosoms, and she doesn't like Elvira because now she has competition, and Elvira doesn't know where to go. The mechanic's staring at her. She has to stay in this. She thought it was going to be a beautiful house. It's an old creepy house, and she has a new relative, this great uncle, who's really mean to her, doesn't like her at all. So she's very upset by this information. She's doing really badly in the town, and then the teenagers keep looking at her and trying to peek in a window at her and look at her ample breasts. You understand, because they're horny, and so they're spying on her and trying to take a picture, which is, I think that's illegal. I think, what is it called? Revenge porn now, or revenge porn or something that it would be called now. I don't know what it's called. But at the time, it was just 80s mad camp antics. That's all it was. So anyway, Elvira spends her whole movie cracking wise. She's always cracking jokes, and nothing really seems to bother her. She gets a little upset here and there. But there's this town hunk, and the tall blonde lady with the ample bosoms really likes him. So she hates Elvira because the hunk and Elvira are making eyeballs at each other. And then Elvira has to inherit this little dog. And there's a book of recipes that the old man really, really wants. And Elvira was going to give it to him for $50, but she changes her mind because she realizes there's magic spells in there. And she accidentally cooks a magic spell of this demon that comes out of a cooking pot when she's trying to seduce the hunk so they can have sexual activity. But he was nervous to have sexual activity with her for some reason, which is also what happens in Big with Tom Hanks. He doesn't understand. But anyway, I'm not sure if they have the sexual activity yet, but she's casting the spells, and then all the women they all gang up on her. Like, who's that redheaded lady? Kind of a heavy set lady. She was always playing like the nosy neighbor. I think like in Step by Step or something like that. And it doesn't really matter. But anyway, she really hates Elvira, and they have these town meeting commissions to get people like her out of their town. So then Elvira gets arrested for witchcraft because apparently they still uphold that crime. And they decide the town is going to kill Elvira. They're going to execute her without any court whatsoever, without any trial. They're just going to burn her because she's a witch in the middle of the gimmick there. I think Elvira, she cast a spell on a town to make them horny as revenge. So they all started to rub against each other and grind each other's genitals on others' genitals and whatnot as revenge, just to kind of mess with them because she was bored and tired of them being mean to her. Meanwhile, the local kids and this 14-year-old girl that Elvira befriended because the girl just has strict grandparents or something like that. And all the kids that were helping, especially the dudes who were trying to look at her ample bosoms, they were helping her build the house and clean it up. And there was an 80s montage because there's got to be a montage. So all the kids aren't allowed to talk to her anymore, and they throw her in jail. And with the kids, then, they realize they got to do what's right. They break her out of jail. But it's too little too late. The kids end up in jail, and Elvira, she's at the stake, and they're burning. It's on fire, and the blonde lady is the one who lit it on fire because at one point, the blonde lady's fake bosoms fell out, and she didn't have big bosoms at all. So everyone laughed and body shamed her. Is how they get to teach her a lesson or something. But then again, she did try to kill the other Elvira lady. So there's no good people in any of these things. But the town hunk, he starts throwing water on the stake, and no one's going to mess with the town hunk because he's got muscles. And they free her, and then they realize what they were doing was wrong. And then Elvira has to stop the old man who's using the recipe book to become an old evil wizard. And she uses her magic to defeat him somehow and send him back into hell. And she keeps the house. And then finally or maybe she sells it. I don't know if she does. And she gets her show in Vegas. And the big main event, the climax of this movie, the climax of this movie is her show in Vegas, and she's just singing some goofy song, and she's got tassel. Am I still recording? Sorry, folks, there was a little bit of a technical mishap there. but she has a big song and dance number, and she's swinging her boobies all around, and the tassels are flying, and she's smiling like, "Hey, look at him!" And that's why she's the hero. And she finally won her battle against being objectified by objectifying herself, and it all made sense. And that was the last time anyone's seen poor Elvira. And her name's Cassandra Peterson, and I'm pretty sure in the credits they don't give her like her actual name. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was looking, I didn't see it anywhere. That was our special bonus. Sorry about the technical difficulties right there. But those are the remaining of the 1988 movies. So in episode 8, I will have a different movie. I don't know what it is yet. Who knows? It is what it is. I am what I am. What I am, any way you slice it, just being the best Bob I could be. I keep so please hit like, subscribe to Beachtown. Thanks for these bonus wacky movie synopsises. Oh, I forgot to mention Heather's and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark combined, arguably the greatest films ever made.